Rob Reiner and his wife have been found dead in their home in Brentwood, California.
At 78, Rob Reiner was found dead alongside his wife. Here's what we know. When fame reaches a certain altitude, we assume those who live there are somehow untouchable, protected by wealth and influence from the random violence that haunts ordinary lives. Rob Reiner spent decades crafting stories about love, friendship, and the resilience of the human spirit. From the fairy tale romance of The Princess Bride to the cynical comedy of This Is Spinal Tap, his films taught us that even in darkness, there's always hope for a happy ending. But on a quiet Sunday afternoon in Brentwood, the man who gave us so many perfect conclusions discovered that real life doesn't always follow the script. The legendary director and his wife, Michele Singer Reiner, were found dead in their home, victims of what police are calling an apparent homicide. The couple who met on the set of When Harry Met Sally, and whose real-life love story actually inspired that film's romantic ending, were discovered with fatal stab wounds in the mansion where they'd built their life together. Law enforcement sources revealed the scene was so disturbing that veteran detectives called it one of the most shocking celebrity cases they'd encountered. As tributes pour in from Hollywood's biggest names, dark questions emerge about what really happened in those final moments and who could have wanted to destroy two people beloved by an entire industry. Make sure to stay with us through this entire story, because the details that emerge paint a picture far more complex than the initial report suggested. The call came into Los Angeles Emergency Services at exactly 3:30 on a Sunday afternoon, a routine wellness check that would shatter Hollywood's sense of security forever. Emergency responders arrived at the sprawling Brentwood mansion on Chadbourne Avenue, expecting perhaps a medical emergency or minor incident. Instead, they discovered a scene that would haunt veteran first responders for years to come. Rob Reiner and Michele Singer Reiner, married for 36 years, lay dead in their own home, victims of what appeared to be a vicious knife attack. The Los Angeles Fire Department confirmed that a man and woman, approximately 78 and 68 years old, had been found deceased inside the residence. Within minutes, the scene was transformed into a major crime investigation, with LAPD's elite robbery homicide division taking control. The same unit that handles the city's most complex and high-profile murders suddenly found themselves investigating the deaths of one of Hollywood's most beloved figures. Neighbors described hearing nothing unusual that afternoon. No screams, no commotion, nothing to suggest the horror unfolding behind the mansion's pristine facade. One neighbor told reporters that it was the kind of quiet Sunday that makes you feel safe in your own neighborhood, the type of peaceful afternoon that Brentwood residents had come to expect in their exclusive enclave. The same streets where celebrities like Marilyn Monroe and O.J. Simpson had once lived, where paparazzi rarely ventured and security was considered unbreachable, had become the setting for unthinkable violence. What made this discovery even more devastating was the timing. Rob had just completed filming concert footage for a Spinal Tap project at Stonehenge, talking excitedly about future plans with friends just hours before his death. Eric Idle later revealed that he had spoken with Rob for over an hour the night before, discussing his upcoming projects and thoughts for the future. The fairy tale that began on a movie set had ended in a nightmare that no script could have imagined. The irony was almost too cruel to process. The man who had spent his career creating happy endings had met the most unhappy ending imaginable. When LAPD's Robbery Homicide Division arrived at the Brentwood mansion, they encountered evidence so disturbing that the deputy chief refused to release specific details to the press. Law enforcement sources, speaking on condition of anonymity, revealed that both Rob and Michele had suffered multiple stab wounds consistent with a prolonged and brutal knife attack. The wounds suggested This wasn't a quick crime of passion, but rather a sustained assault that spoke to either extreme rage or calculated violence. The medical examiner's van remained at the scene for hours as investigators meticulously documented what one source called one of the most shocking celebrity homicides in recent memory. TMZ reported that the couple had suffered lacerations consistent with a knife attack, but the full extent of the violence remained sealed behind yellow police tape and official silence. The brutality of the scene reportedly left even seasoned homicide detectives struggling to maintain their professional composure. Deputy Chief Alan Hamilton, speaking at a late-night press conference, chose his words carefully when describing the scene, clearly fighting to balance transparency with the need to preserve the investigation's integrity. The investigation will continue through the night, and we will provide updates as appropriate. What investigators found inside that mansion was so disturbing that even hardened detectives struggled to process the brutality visited upon two people who had dedicated their lives to bringing joy and meaning to others. The home that had hosted countless Hollywood gatherings, where Rob and Michele had raised their 3 children and celebrated decades of marriage, had become a crime scene that would require extensive forensic analysis. Multiple police cars remained stationed around the property through the night, their flashing lights casting eerie shadows across a neighborhood that prided itself on privacy and security. The street was cordoned off for blocks as investigators worked methodically to piece together the final moments of 2 beloved Hollywood figures. Crime scene technicians worked through the night, photographing evidence and collecting samples that might eventually lead them to understand how such violence could have occurred in what should have been a safe haven. The contrast between the peaceful Brentwood neighborhood and the violence that occurred within those walls created an unsettling reminder that evil can penetrate even the most secure sanctuaries. As dawn broke on Monday morning, the investigation continued, but the questions only multiplied with each passing hour. Within hours of discovering the bodies, law enforcement sources revealed they were interviewing a family member in connection with the deaths, leading to the most devastating twist in this tragedy. The Los Angeles Times reported that a family member was being questioned by authorities, though police officials initially refused to confirm any details about potential suspects or persons of interest. The news sent shockwaves through Hollywood, where the assumption had been that this was either a random home invasion or perhaps connected to Rob's outspoken political activism. Then came the bombshell that sent even deeper shockwaves through Hollywood and beyond. People magazine reported that multiple sources confirmed the Reiner's 32-year-old son, Nick, was allegedly responsible for his parents' deaths. The allegation struck like lightning through an industry already reeling from the initial news. Nick Reiner, one of 3 children Rob and Michele shared together, had apparently been present at or near the scene when the bodies were discovered. Sources close to the family revealed that it was actually their daughter, Romy, who found the bodies, with Rob already deceased and Michele dying in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. The horror of a daughter discovering her murdered parents added another layer of unbearable tragedy to an already incomprehensible situation. No one has been detained at this time, and the investigation is ongoing. LAPD Deputy Chief Hamilton, when pressed about the People magazine report during a chaotic Monday night press conference, maintained official silence about any family involvement, stating that such reports did not come from the LAPD. The devastating possibility that this wasn't a random home invasion or robbery gone wrong, but instead a family tragedy of unimaginable proportions added layers of heartbreak to an already incomprehensible situation. Rob and Michele had devoted their lives to their children, with Rob often speaking proudly about his role as a father and stepfather to Tracy, his adopted daughter, from his marriage to Penny Marshall. He had frequently mentioned how proud he was of all his children, including Nick, who had followed somewhat in the family business. The idea that the love they'd poured into their family could somehow lead to their destruction defied every principle Rob had championed in both his films and his personal life. As investigators continued their work, the entertainment industry grappled with questions that had no comfortable answers, wondering how a family that seemed so close and loving could be torn apart by such unthinkable violence. The irony cuts deeper when you realize that Rob and Michele's real-life love story literally changed the ending of When Harry Met Sally, proving that sometimes truth really is more beautiful than fiction. Rob had been single for years after his divorce from Penny Marshall, convinced that lasting love might be beyond his reach. The divorce had been amicable but painful, ending a marriage to one of Hollywood's most successful female directors and leaving Rob questioning whether he was capable of maintaining a lasting relationship. He was directing what was meant to be a bittersweet romantic comedy where the two main characters would meet years later, talk, and then walk away from each other forever, a reflection of his own cynical view of romance at the time. Then, cinematographer Barry Sonnenfeld introduced him to Michele Singer, a photographer working on the film, and everything changed. I met my wife Michele, who I've been married to now 35 years. I met her while we were making the film, and I changed the ending. Rob was attracted immediately to Michele's intelligence, wit, and beauty. But more importantly, he found himself believing in love again. Their courtship during production convinced him that love stories could have happy endings after all, that cynicism didn't have to be the final word on human relationships. Harry and Sally's reunion at the New Year's Eve party, where Billy Crystal declares his love for Meg Ryan, became a direct reflection of Rob's own romantic awakening. The famous scene where Harry lists all the things he loves about Sally, how she gets cold when it's 71 degrees, how she takes forever to order food, was inspired by Rob's own growing list of things he adored about Michele. Michele had actually photographed Donald Trump for the cover of The Art of the Deal years earlier, bringing her own accomplished career to their partnership. She wasn't just a Hollywood wife, but a talented professional in her own right, with a successful photography career that included major magazine covers and celebrity portraits. Their marriage in 1989 marked the beginning of what seemed like Hollywood's perfect love story, complete with 3 children and a shared commitment to social justice causes. Rob credited Michele with inspiring much of his political activism, once joking that she was his Bunsen burner that lights the flame in my ass. He often said that meeting her had made him a better person, more compassionate, and more willing to fight for causes beyond himself. Together, they founded the American Foundation for Equal Rights, fighting against Proposition 8's ban on same-sex marriage in California. Their partnership extended beyond romance into meaningful advocacy work that touched countless lives, from marriage equality to early childhood development programs. The ending Rob wrote for Harry and Sally now serves as a haunting reminder of the love that was stolen from this world, a testament to the power of real love to transform not just individual lives, but entire stories. Before we continue with the final details of this tragedy, let us know in the comments which aspect of Rob Reiner's legacy means the most to you. And don't forget to leave a like if you're finding this story as compelling as we are. As news of the murders spread through Hollywood, the tributes revealed just how much Rob Reiner meant to an industry that rarely agrees on anything. California Governor Gavin Newsom called Rob the big-hearted genius behind so many of the classic stories we love, while Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass described his death as a devastating loss for our city and our country. The Screen Actors Guild, representing tens of thousands of performers, issued a statement calling Reiner one of the most significant figures in the history of film and television. But these weren't just polite industry platitudes, they reflected genuine affection and respect from colleagues across the political and creative spectrum. What made these tributes so poignant was their focus not just on Rob's artistic achievements, but on his moral leadership during increasingly polarized times. He had become Hollywood's conscience, an outspoken advocate for democracy who wasn't afraid to use his platform for causes he believed in. His Twitter account had become a daily source of political commentary, often warning about threats to democratic institutions and calling out what he saw as authoritarianism. Rob always used his gifts in service of others, fighting for social and economic justice. Former colleagues recalled a man who treated everyone on set with respect, from the biggest stars to the newest production assistants. Tom Hanks, who starred in several of Rob's films, remembered him as a director who created an atmosphere of collaboration and mutual respect on every set. Kathy Bates, who worked with him on Misery, described being horrified by the news, remembering him as brilliant and kind. A man who made films of every genre to challenge himself as an artist. She recalled how Rob had pushed her to deliver what would become one of her most memorable performances, creating an environment where she felt safe to explore the darker aspects of her character. Billy Crystal and Larry David were reportedly at the scene Sunday night, arriving to support the family during their darkest hour. The sight of these comedy legends, faces drawn with grief, served as a visual reminder of how deeply Rob's death had shaken the entertainment community. Crystal, who had worked with Rob on multiple projects and considered him both a mentor and a friend, was visibly shaken as he left the scene. The entertainment industry had lost not just a talented filmmaker, but a moral compass who had consistently chosen principle over profit, art over commerce, and justice over silence. His films spanned genres and decades, from the mockumentary brilliance of This Is Spinal Tap to the heartwarming adventure of The Princess Bride, from the courtroom drama of A Few Good Men to the coming-of-age story of Stand By Me. Each film bore his distinctive mark, a deep belief in the power of storytelling to reveal fundamental truths about human nature. His death leaves a void that extends far beyond Hollywood, touching everyone who believes that storytelling can make the world a better place. The man who taught us that true love conquers all, that friendship endures, and that good ultimately triumphs over evil, became the victim of a violence that defies every lesson his films tried to teach. Rob Reiner spent his career creating stories that reminded us of our shared humanity, from the childlike wonder of The Princess Bride to the moral clarity of A Few Good Men. He believed that art could change hearts, that laughter could heal wounds, and that love could rewrite even the most pessimistic endings. His films weren't just entertainment, they were arguments for hope, compassion, and the possibility of human goodness, even in the darkest circumstances. Michele Singer Reiner stood beside him through it all, the photographer who captured beauty in a world that often seemed determined to destroy it. Together, they proved that real love stories could be more powerful than any script, more enduring than any film. Their partnership was both personal and professional, a collaboration that produced not just children and films, but meaningful change in the world around them. Their deaths remind us that the darkness we try so hard to keep at bay through our stories, our laws, and our love sometimes finds a way in anyway. But perhaps that's exactly why we need the stories Rob told us. Not because they promise that life will always have happy endings, but because they insist that hope is worth fighting for, even when the world seems determined to break our hearts. In a time when cynicism feels like the only rational response to the world's cruelty, Rob Reiner's films remain as beacons of possibility, reminding us that love, friendship, and justice are worth pursuing, even when they seem impossible to achieve. Let us know in the comments how Rob Reiner's films touched your life. And if this story moved you, please subscribe to keep these important conversations alive.